For years, the baseball world operated under one core, undeniable assumption. When Japanese slugger Munetaka Murakami finally made the jump to Major League Baseball, he would follow the money and the limelight, inevitably ending up with powerhouse franchises like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets, or the Red Sox. That assumption, which fueled millions of hot stove rumors and occupied weeks of sports talk radio, was not just incorrect, it was spectacularly, shockingly misguided.
Welcome back to 603 Snap News, the only place where the biggest bombs dropped in the offseason don't come from the bats, but from the front offices themselves. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest story of the winter is finalized. Munetaka Murakami has made his decision, and he is heading to the south side of Chicago. That's right, forget the bright lights of New York, forget the sunshine of Los Angeles. The 25-year-old superstar has signed with the Chicago White Sox.
We have the details straight from Jeff Passan. Munetaka Murakami and the White Sox are in agreement on a 2-year, $34 million contract, sources tell ESPN, a deal that immediately sends shockwaves through the league. Murakami, Japan's single-season home run champion, will bring his devastating power to a White Sox team that is currently, quite frankly, in the deepest throes of a painful rebuild.
And I'm going to tell you right now, straight off the bat, I absolutely love this move for the White Sox. And I'll give you all my reasons why in just a moment. But first, let's talk about the talent we're dealing with here. Before the ink was even dry on his posting, every major league executive was drooling over the generational power potential this guy possesses. As Passan noted, he absolutely shattered the NPB single-season home run record back in 2022 with 56 dingers. He was only 22 years old at the time, setting the mark for the most home runs ever by a Japanese-born player in the NPB. Murakami's power is truly off the charts. His barrel-to-ball profile is extremely strong. His exit velocity is insane. The man just hits absolute missiles. But, as with all high-risk, high-reward international signings, there was one major caveat, one sticking point that caused many large-market teams to pump the brakes: his plate discipline, or lack thereof.
Passan detailed these exact concerns, noting that the combination of Murakami's significant swing and miss tendencies and the lingering questions over his ultimate defensive position gave many teams pause in their pursuit. And this is where the genius of the White Sox deal truly shines. Rather than chase a massive, long-term commitment that might tie him down through his prime years, something like a 6-year, $150 million deal, Murakami opted for the short-term, high-leverage contract.
He will be a free agent again at age 27, giving him 2 years to completely assuage the fears of major league evaluators. This is why I think this is an absolutely fantastic move for the White Sox, not just because of the pure talent they're acquiring, but because the contract itself is a masterpiece of risk mitigation. They are not tied down to a long-term anchor. Now, focusing back on the player, as I mentioned, the power is unquestionably elite, but that approximately 30% strikeout rate he maintained in Japan over the last few years is extremely high. Bringing that kind of whiff rate over to the States, where he will face superior pitching depth and tighter strike zones, creates a massive question mark. So, the White Sox now have an enormous task on their hands. They must figure out how to significantly reduce those strikeouts, or at the very least maintain the current rate, while still unlocking his immense 40 to 50 home run potential, because I genuinely believe the power is that good. Now, let's address where he fits defensively. Passan goes on to clarify that Munetaka Murakami is expected to play first base for the White Sox. This makes sense. All the scouting reports suggested he simply lacked the necessary agility and footwork to stick at third base long-term. First base, along with some designated hitter time, is going to be his home. And looking at this White Sox organization, specifically the young bats they have stockpiled, with Murakami joining Colson Montgomery, Kyle Teel, Edgar Quero, Miguel Vargas, Chase Midroth, and Braden Montgomery not far behind, the potential for this offensive core to be special in the coming years is real. Yes, they still have a long way to go. They've only combined for about 100 wins over the last couple of seasons, so they are not there yet. But the pieces are falling into place. You look back at the trades they've made, like the Garrett Crochet deal, which brought back Kyle Teal, a top catching prospect, and Braden Montgomery, a recent first-round pick.
Then you have guys like Chase Midroth, a personal favorite of mine, just a dirt dog kind of player you absolutely want on your team, alongside Cuero and Montgomery. While there have been swirling trade rumors this offseason involving guys like Cuero and Teal, the fact remains they have offensively stockpiled a serious amount of high-ceiling talent.
And we haven't even touched on the pitching side, with young arms like Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith joining Shane Smith, who had a very solid year last season. I'm genuinely excited about the direction of this White Sox team, and they haven't even moved Luis Robert Jr. yet. I imagine they will trade him eventually, maybe eating some of the contract to maximize the return, but the talent they have already amassed is staggering.
I just love the profile of this new team. A lot of high-character, dirt dog players, good baseball players, and now you inject a potential 40 to 50 home run threat like Murakami right into the middle of it. This move also aligns with an established White Sox organizational philosophy that I've admired going back to the early 2010s. They consistently target major international power talents. Jose Abreu coming over from Cuba, being a foundational power guy. Luis Robert following a few years later, surrounded by massive hype. Now they bring in Murakami. I appreciate that the White Sox are consistently willing to make these kinds of high-impact international splashes. And in Murakami, they are acquiring arguably the biggest name to ever come out of Japan in franchise history. The beauty, again, is that 2-year prove-it contract. They aren't breaking the bank at $17 million per year. They are giving themselves a couple of years to see if his specific skill set, the insane power, the high strikeout rate, translates to the major league game. And if he goes off over the next 2 seasons, imagine the scenario. If he hits 40 to 50 home runs each year, we're going to have Murakami mania dominating free agency in 2028.
It's an incredibly compelling situation, and there is almost no risk here for the White Sox. They let Murakami prove himself, and they get to assess the payoff. It's pure upside, and it puts the White Sox firmly on the right track toward contention. Now that the Murakami domino has fallen, the attention immediately shifts to the next significant Japanese slugger on the market, Kazuma Okamoto. Now, I should be clear, Okamoto is not going to have quite the transcendent ceiling of Munetaka Murakami, but he offers a much higher, safer floor. It's fascinating to speculate what kind of contract he ends up getting. Murakami only secured 2 years due to the swing and miss concerns, but with Okamoto being a higher floor, more established player at 29 years old, I could actually see him landing a 3 or even a 4-year deal. He might very well get a longer contract than Murakami, though the average annual value will probably be a little less, maybe hovering around $15 million per year. We'll wait and see on the final numbers, but he certainly shouldn't break the bank for any club. Okamoto is coming off a great final season in Japan, despite dealing with some injuries that limited him to 69 games. When he was healthy, he slashed a dominant .327 with an OPS over 1,000, hitting 15 home runs. Okamoto brings significant pop from the right side of the plate, and crucially, he pulls the ball exceptionally well, maintaining around a 50% pull percentage over the last few seasons. Any team looking for a power bat that can elevate and pull the ball, that is, a classic modern power hitter, is going to be intensely interested. And his versatility only sweetens the deal. He can capably handle first base, third base, and even some left field. Now, his defense has generated conflicting reports. Some scouts rate him very highly defensively, while others suggest his glove work is merely decent. Regardless, the fact that he brings that defensive flexibility to the table adds significant value, especially when combined with his proven power. He hit 41 home runs in 2023, 27 in 2024, 39 in 2021, and 30 in 2022. There is substantial power there, even if it's slightly below the Murakami tier. So, who are the best fits for Okamoto?
The list is long. Excuse my bias, I'm looking straight at my Red Sox. Yes, they have Tristan Casas at first, but he's coming off a major injury, and the Red Sox desperately need to inject power into the middle of the order. Okamoto could represent a cheaper way to add significant thump. We recently heard reports that they were kicking the tires on him, just as they did Murakami, so perhaps they pivot here. The Toronto Blue Jays have also been connected to Okamoto. They've been linked to massive names like Bob Att and Kyle Tucker all off-season, but if those guys go elsewhere, Okamoto becomes a very decent fallback option. With guys like Barger and Clement in the infield, they could potentially move Barger out to the outfield and make Okamoto their everyday third baseman. That's a real possibility. The Angels have also been linked to him, though they already possess a high volume of right-handed bats. Would they want to add another?
It's a bit of a question mark, especially after acquiring Von Griem, who hasn't fully proven himself. But perhaps Okamoto plays third base while Christian Moore shifts to second, or Okamoto plays first and Noan Schanuel moves to the outfield. The Seattle Mariners are another very strong fit. While they just brought back Josh Naylor at first base, Okamoto could handle third base, split time at DH, and play some left field, allowing a guy like Julio Rodriguez to have some DH days too.
Then you look at the small market teams. The Miami Marlins, who generally don't like spending big money, could absorb a $15 million AAV deal. They desperately need another bat to complement their pitching and existing bats like Kyle Stowers. A team that took a step forward last year, they need one more offensive piece to truly compete for a wildcard spot. And speaking of teams that avoid spending, the Pittsburgh Pirates are interesting.
They just brought in Brandon Loud, but adding Okamoto would solidify that infield immensely. He wouldn't break their financial ceiling. Lastly, the Cincinnati Reds. They could absolutely use another high-impact bat, although where to put him is complicated. With Spencer Steer at first, Sal Stewart at DH, and Kieran Hayes at third, the fit requires creativity. Perhaps Spencer Steer shifts to left field and Okamoto becomes the first baseman.
That kind of pop in the extremely hitter-friendly park in Cincinnati could be an excellent match. So the focus is absolutely shifting to Okamoto now that Murakami is off the board. But circling back to the White Sox and Murakami, I cannot stress enough how much I adore this move. The addition of immense power potential alongside all that young talent they are developing is exciting. And who knows, maybe the White Sox surprise everyone this year.
Maybe Murakami translates perfectly, absolutely goes off, and they cook up some kind of fun run toward a wildcard spot. They definitely have some talented players in Chicago, and while they aren't there yet, they are certainly on the right track. For Murakami, this is the ultimate prove-it deal. He's motivated, he's looking to hit as many dingers as possible to set himself up for that massive payday in a couple of years.
I love the fit, I love the contract, and I think the White Sox are moving in the right direction. But everybody, that's all I've got for right now. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. What do you think of this shocking signing? Were you surprised? Do you actually think the White Sox are going to make some crazy run this year? How many home runs do you predict Murakami will hit in his first season?
And crucially, where do you think Kazuma Okamoto is going to land now? We still have Tatsuya Ima out there too, so let me know your thoughts on him as well. But everybody, that's all I got for right now. Please do me a favor on the way out. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time. But listen, I want to circle back one more time, because while we spent a lot of time analyzing the potential shortcomings and the contract structure, we need to focus on the truly elite potential of Munetaka Murakami, because that is the entire reason this deal is such a home run, pun absolutely intended, for the White Sox. This isn't just an average slugger coming over. This is the guy who holds the single-season home run record for a Japanese-born player in the NPB, hitting 56 bombs at the age of 22. When you look at his batted ball profile, when you look at the raw data, the exit velocity numbers are absolutely absurd, world-class. He doesn't just hit the ball hard, he hits missiles. And that power is what gives him the superstar ceiling that none of the other international guys outside of Shohei Ohtani possess right now. Yes, we know the strikeout rate is high, hovering around 30% in Japan, and that is definitely the biggest adjustment he needs to make coming over to Major League pitching. But this 2-year, $34 million contract is designed specifically to mitigate that risk while maximizing the reward. If he fails to adjust, if the strikeouts climb to 35% and the average dips below the Mendoza line, the White Sox can walk away in 2 years completely unscathed, having maintained all their long-term payroll flexibility. But if he succeeds, if he manages to dial back that swing and miss just enough to make contact on those high-leverage pitches, the White Sox are getting 2 years of a 40 to 50 home run slugger for $17 million a year. That is a steal.
Furthermore, Murakami himself is playing for generational wealth. He knows that if he proves he can translate his power to the big leagues, he is lining himself up for a contract in the range of $200 million or more when he hits free agency at age 27. That intrinsic motivation is perhaps the most valuable asset the White Sox purchased with this deal. A highly motivated, elite power hitter on a prove-it contract who is ready to dedicate himself fully to eliminating those swing flaws.
This move is not just about adding power. It's about accelerating the entire rebuild timeline. When you have young bats like Kyle Teal, Edgar Quero, and Colson Montgomery developing, inserting a potential middle-of-the-order masher like Murakami sends a signal. This team is serious about winning soon. Maybe not this year, but absolutely by next year. It solidifies the culture shift that general manager Chris Getz has been trying to build, focusing on high-upside talent and gritty players.
This is the biggest signing out of Japan in White Sox history, and it is the kind of high-risk, high-reward move that, when it hits, turns a struggling franchise into an instant contender. It's exactly what the White Sox needed to inject life and potential back into the South Side. They took a chance on the ceiling, they protected the floor with the short contract, and they have successfully turbocharged their path back to relevance in the AL Central. I absolutely love this deal.
Now that is truly all I have for you today. But please, do me a favor on the way out and let me know your final thoughts down in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the breakdown, share this video with your fellow fans, and subscribe to 603 Snap News if you haven't already. And finally, the question I want you to answer is simple. If Murakami hits 50 home runs in his first season, will the White Sox be forced to abandon their rebuild and go all in for 2026?
Let me know below, and I'll talk to you next time.